There's no remoter part of England than that valley. Scottish borders on the horizon, you know. The idea was a wild wood in a really wild landscape.
It's important for a number of reasons. It's important for biodiversity, and it's been really important, I think, for our supporters, for our volunteers, to see what can be done, and it's different from anything else we do.
Kielderhead is a moorland triple-SI which has got large areas of blanket bog. It's also got dry heath, wet heath, some really lovely flushes, rocky areas. The thing that's missing from this upland picture is the woodland in the valley bottoms, and the Wildwood project is creating a much more joined up area of woodland.
The Wildwood comes from the Williams Clough pines, that's the inspiration, and the importance of the pines evolved into a habitat project.
Every tree that we've planted in Wildwood has its origins in the North Tyne Valley. We have used volunteers to collect seeds and berries and sent them off to our nursery in Blythe, and then they've been grown onto the trees that are planted at Wildwood. For Scots pines, we have taken different approaches. We have taken the scions, the top 10 centimetres with the terminal bud, the top third of the tree, and sent them off to be grafted onto generic Scots pine rootstock. When these trees return, they will just have the genetics of the Williams Clough pines. We've also grown on trees from the seeds which we've collected while we've been climbing the pines, and this has been especially successful in the last couple of years.
Being involved with the Wildlife Trust to give back and to do something really positive, knowing that I'm involved in a small way in saving these ancient trees, thrills me to pieces. I just love it, and that's my satisfaction. As a business, commercially it has to work for me, and you know, I've been paid fairly for what I'm doing, and that helps my business as a whole survive and grow, and that's what we like.
Partnership for me is about doing things that you couldn't do yourself and collectively creating a more biodiverse, wilder environment.
The Wildwood project is all about partnership. The Kielderhead Committee helped set up and guide the process. Northumberland Wildlife Trust and Forestry England worked to get the trees in the ground, and the collaboration with Northumbria University added arts and history to the mix.
The Kielderhead Committee is a wider group of partners who've been able to offer constant expertise and encouragement and contacts that have made this project more successful.
One of the nice things about working on a project like this is working with experts who know more than I will ever know as an artist. I mean, my expertise is in art, but it's nice to work with ecologists and to work with scientists and to work with foresters and to work with ornithologists and have these conversations, because they'll bring me into worlds that I'm not entirely in.
This has brought together academics within the university and also to other institutions like Cumbria University, and it's enabled us to build our kind of networks and build those conversations. So really the partnership has been valuable in itself, but also I think it's about strengthening those partnerships and relationships for future work as well.
No organisation or individual can tackle the challenge of the biodiversity crisis that we have. So the only way you can do it is through partnership.
So much of conservation is just about trying to protect what we have and trying to make sure that we don't lose things. This is actually about trying to create something and taking a look at what we're missing and what we could have and taking that opportunity to put something back out there. It is just one great big logistical exercise. Everything's got to be trucked in, and then when we get to here we've got to come off the forest tracks and actually get down to site. Now it's not far, it's about 500 metres, but it's all over land that's soft underfoot, it's uneven, and everything's got to be carried in. The stakes, the plants, the tools, the tubes, everything.
We're at the early stage of planting 30,000 trees, which are broadleaf trees and native to the landscape as it was hundreds of years ago.
Planting trees is not unusual in Kielder, it's a routine part of management, but bringing people in for a purely conservation planting project well into the forest to a very remote area and involving them in all the facets of that, the practicality of establishing trees in that quite difficult environment to work in, that's been huge.
I come out because it's absolutely beautiful out here. I come out with a van full of idiosyncratic people who enjoy doing lots of hard, heavy lifting for nothing at all other than the surroundings and the company they're with.
It's great just getting out here, out into the wilderness essentially, and just getting away from the city, getting some fresh air, bit of physical exercise. So seeing the ideas that I've talked about while I've been doing my degree, and also seeing those in practice and seeing how it actually works, and in a few years we'll be able to see the final product.
So having these volunteers taking time out of their days, giving us this energy to do this is invaluable, and every day I'm thankful to them.
It's when you share something you love with someone, to see them take it and run with it is really satisfying.
What's been fascinating for me is that this has quite literally changed the lives of some of our volunteers who kind of got involved by hearing about our online conference, for example, and they come and volunteer and then they go, this is what I want to do with my life, and go away, change their career, do something completely new. If they're coming from Newcastle or further afield, they're spending 3 hours a day getting to and from the site, and they come back time and time again. So there must be something really compelling and interesting about this project.
It is challenging, it might be tiring, but I enjoy it, and the challenge is, I don't know, just seeing things grow at the end of the day. It's very satisfying when you don't imagine they're going to grow at all, and it's just in a place that is just so beautiful and peaceful.
Wildness is such a simple idea because everybody knows what it is, and that's the trouble, because everybody's idea of wildness is probably different.
It's going out to somewhere like the Wildwood. It doesn't have to be a wildwood, it doesn't even have to be that wild. Wild is a concept rather than a reality.
Wildness is about complexity, and it's about embracing complexity as a good thing.
I think wildness is creating a place where you know that nature dominates and decides what happens.
There is a science element to it, and I think, like a lot of people, for me, wildness is getting nature to do what it wants, which can be a bit unnerving, but letting nature have that flexibility and possibility. But also for me, I think wildness is something slightly unnerving.
We need those places which are difficult places to access, and it makes them more special. And you can experience those places in different ways. You don't need to have gone there. I don't think, I feel that's a really important part of wildness, is that they aren't people places.
It's about a recognition for me as a human being that I'm not in control of my environment, that there is something out there that isn't me, and that part of my negotiation with the world is accepting that and being receptive, listening, and I suppose ceding some of that ground.
Because this is an ongoing project, and birds are a terrific indicator, it will give us an idea of how the habitats will change as the trees grow, because the bird populations will change and the range of birds that occur here will change as well as the trees become more mature or as they fill out. So it will give us a good indication of success or otherwise of the project.
It is 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm not normally awake, but we're on Wildwood, Kielder, and we've been mammal trapping last night and this morning. We're monitoring the small mammal population and looking at species and the demographics, so ratio of sex, breeding condition, young, adult, and it just gives Graham an idea of how Wildwood's working, and hopefully we'll be able to do repeat visits so we can see how the small mammal population and its species change as Wildwood develops.
I'm a writer, so I'm not an ecologist, I don't know about the science, but as a writer I'm interested in what's the world like, what's the texture of experience, and how can I help readers to feel emotions and to imagine experiences. So one of my jobs here is to write about the site and write about the experience of being here, to help people imagine what it's like and to help them understand what it's for.
So my job really is to try and provoke, reveal and inspire, which are the three themes that we look for as an interpreter. Interpretation allows people to come to a spot, understand what that place is about. Why is this Kielder? Why is this Kielderhead? Why isn't it another place? What is it about this place that they can go away with and remember and value?
I'm interested in the way that things connect together, and those connections, those networks from one species to another or from one person to another, I think have an importance in how we perceive our places and how we perceive the landscape around us. And that's something that I want to try and interpret with the project that I'm doing here as well.
To be able to be involved with the Wildwood and not have to do botanical surveys, not to identify to species level little creatures in the river, was a joy, and to work with writers and poets and filmmakers and foresters and just let my imagination go wild in the Wildwood was a joy.
Bringing together different disciplines can help to provide a kind of human context. So not just the kind of hard science and the conservation activity, which is absolutely at the core of Wildwood, but thinking about, well, what does this project mean for wider communities?
When we first started planting, you didn't imagine anything would grow. And I would say the first couple of years, nothing seemed to be happening in the tubes. They stood, but all of a sudden, in the last 2 or 3 years, there is evidence of a lot of growth, and it's very satisfying, and I would say it's a majority are succeeding.
Kielderhead Wildwood was inspired by carafran in the Scottish borders. 25 years ago, volunteers started planting up broadleaf species. It is a great example of what wildwood might look like in the future.
I like the idea that it's going to be there long into the future. I find that deeply pleasurable and a very warm feeling, which is not necessarily the sort of idea you'd get from wilderness and wild places.
The scale of the potential for the project is huge, because we already have very large habitat defined, which is well beyond the boundaries of the wildwood. And I think this project's given us the basis to grow and expand that over a wider area.
We are creating something for the future. So as the forest woodland develops and matures, then there'll be opportunities for other species to colonize, the species fauna to colonize, and plants and so forth that we might not otherwise had. So what we're doing, I guess, is changing people's thinking, I hope, but also changing the landscape and the ecology and the biodiversity of the woodland as well.
Just nice to go there, see a wood being planted. We'll have a whole beautiful community all on that swathe of a wildwood. So it'll be very, very dynamic, and you know it's going to be there in hopefully 1,000 years' time.
It's the start of conversation, really. The wildwood is part of a wider network of sites and projects, but also I guess a wider set of conversations about changing our relationship with the natural world, understanding it in new ways. And we might get there a little bit further down the line, but as I say, for now, I think wildness is a kind of work in progress.
We won't have to keep on coming back here every 50 years to plant another 100 trees, because there'll be 100 trees self-seeding. There'll be hundreds and hundreds of different species coming in here and breeding. It'll become something that we can just enjoy, as opposed to having to work this hard to do it.
It'll be great, because I'm hoping to come back in about 10 years' time, and hopefully we'll see this entire hillside will be just covered in trees, and I'll be able to think, I did that 10 years ago.
This is the start of a woodland that will fill in the missing link in upland habitats and contain the next generation of Williams Clough Scots pines.
I would like future generations to feel true wildness in Northumberland, and I believe that the wildwood is the place in which we can demonstrate that.
Nature needs to be higher up on the agenda, and if it is, and more projects like this take place, that can only be to the good of all of us. And if I'm involved in that, great, because I really, really get a lot of satisfaction out knowing that some of my trees are going to be growing on Kielder for 200 years. Wow.
The future looks really bright. The conversations we're having in the Kielderhead committee about the approach to conservation and tree planting across the much wider Kielder landscape. Some of that has to have been influenced by the approach we've taken at Wildwood, the species we've used, where we've planted, all the years and years of discussion before this project and through this project, and it's really heartening to see that. And for me, it's about the future. It's a long-term thing. I want to go up and look at it in 30 years and see what it looks like and say, I did that.